good evening to you both. And let's begin with federal leaders focusing on the finish line. And as the election draws near, Mark Carney faced with scrutiny over threats from Donald Trump after previously saying the U.S. president respected Canada's sovereignty during their call in March.
Yes or no, did Mr. Trump bring up the 51st state in his call with you?
I said that he did. Him raising something and then where the discussion is, he has these things in his mind. This is not news. He raises it all the time.
Now, it's a theme that's also become a talking point on the NDP leaders' campaign trail.
I'm worried, I think, as a lot of Canadians are worried, that if Mark Carney's not being straight up with us, he's not going to be straight up with us in the negotiations. And workers are worried about what's going to be on the table.
Now, Conservative Pierre Poilievre is staying on message.
After the lost Liberal decade of rising costs and crime and a falling economy under America's thumb, we cannot afford a fourth Liberal term.
As for the race itself, polls suggest the Liberals hold a 5-point lead over the Conservatives. Bob, we'll start with you. What do you think this election is going to come down to for Canadian voters? What's the issue that's going to sway the outcome?
Well, I think that change is still the ultimate theme for a lot of Canadians, and the Liberals, they're still the same people with Carney at the helm. And to me, and a lot of people, he's a 3 dressed up as a 9, with apologies to Trooper. He's just wasting our time. The biggest issue is still who will fight Trump the hardest and work in Canada's best interests and unite us across the country.
Darren, how close an election race do you see this ending up being, and where do you see the momentum going?
Well, you know what? There's no doubt it's going to be close. I mean, you take a look at the 338 Canada, and they show that. I mean, we're within a few seats here, and a lot of the ones that may go the Liberals' favor, including some in Alberta here, they're actually more toss-ups or just leaning one way or the other. So I think it's going to be really, really close. I think actually the interesting part of all of this is not how the Liberals or the Conservatives fare, but how the NDP fares in those ridings, and that may tip the balance one way or the other in favor of the Liberals. But you know, generally speaking, I actually find momentum to be at a little bit of a stalemate right now. The clip that you showed of Pierre Poilievre, while it may seem reserved and you know, almost stoic in a way, it almost seemed a little bit lacking inspiration there. There was no clear winner with knockout blows in the federal leaders debates. And I think overall it's reflected in little change in the polling numbers over the past week or so.
Bob, Darren references races in Alberta. How much of a say do you feel Albertans will ultimately have here?
Well, I think overall, as always, we will state that we are a Conservative stronghold. But we all know that by the time it gets through Quebec and Ontario, it'll all be decided. So maybe we need to change our strategy and be like a little Trojan horse inside the Liberal Party. I don't know. We'll just see what happens at the end of the day.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of eyes on what happens here in Alberta on the 28th. Okay, next up, the declaration of a turnaround in downtown Calgary, one that, according to a new report on the state of the city's course, starts with the issue of safety.
So last year, 73% of Calgarians said that they feel safe, and this year we're seeing that 85% of Calgarians feel that they are safe. But please understand that we still have a lot more work to do.
While the city has added 70 new transit peace officers since 2022, there is still unease for some.
Right now, we don't feel that safe, but I think it's something that we need to work around, and it's something that as a group effort, we need to work with the government, the police.
There's still more work to do. We still have encampments, open consumption, a lot of graffiti, so we've got to go after those things as well.
Converting vacant office space into housing is another major effort with 11 projects underway.
The property value of the buildings that are downtown, and what we understand is that we have property values that have increased by $1.8 billion.
Completion of conversions will add about 1,500 new homes. Darren, in writing about this for LiveWire, your headline reads that the report paints a rosy picture. How far do the declared successes go to meeting municipal expectations?
Look, you know what? It was a really, really rosy picture, and I actually even asked the mayor about that. I'm like, most state of the downtown or state of anything reports, sure, they highlight the successes, but they also look at some of the challenges. This report did none of that. It didn't really highlight or I guess put a spotlight anywhere on some of the challenges which really do still exist. The state of Calgary's downtown, it's interesting. I'm sure anybody who has kids, when they see the growth of their kids incrementally over time, and then compare that with somebody who hasn't seen the kids for 3 or 4 or 6 months, they go, wow, your kid has grown, and you don't really see the change. That's kind of what it's like for many Calgarians. You'll see the downtown, and sure, there are some pockets of improvement, and you see the new downtown conversions, you see some new events happening, but in a lot of ways, the downtown has remained very, very much the same from even 5 years ago, particularly around the safety aspect of things. So I'm not sure that the report really mirrors the actual state of downtown, but it certainly does show a lot of the progress that's been made over the past 4 years.
Bob, as a Calgarian, how do you rate the current state of downtown, and how closely does that mirror what this report says on revitalization?
Yeah, it's still there's still a lot of work to do. I think it's still a bit dodgy. I talk to a lot of people that work downtown and have to traverse through the mess and the outdoor urination and the drug use. So there's a lot of work left to do, and I personally would like to see this administration bring all the employees back to City Hall and just show leadership, repopulate the downtown, and just say, look, we can bring everyone back. Maybe it's time for all the employees to come back downtown and get some foot traffic. There is a bit of an improvement in foot traffic, but there's still a lot of work to do.
Darren, I know it's still a few months away, but how do you see the state of downtown factoring into the October municipal election?
The downtown itself, I'm not sure that outside of the downtown and maybe the Beltline area that it's a really big issue for a lot of Calgarians. But how it ties into a bigger issue overall from a municipal perspective is in transit safety in general. And transit safety, the issues aren't just focused on the downtown. There's transit safety issues all over Calgary, but they become a little bit more, I guess, under the microscope in the downtown area due to some of the other social disorder issues that are going on. So transit safety will be an issue in the upcoming municipal election, but I don't know if the downtown and the revitalization of it will be that big of an issue overall.
The weak dollar and Donald Trump's tariff chaos continue to keep many Canadians focused on travel north of the border. An aviation analytics firm says domestic flights for the summer booked between January and March are up 11% year over year, while flight bookings to the U.S. down nearly 20%. Calgarians, however, appear to be bucking the trend.
Calgary to U.S. market is relatively stable, with the bookings for similar periods for this coming summer are right on for what they were last summer.
That follows Statistics Canada showing nearly 85,000 Canadians returning to Calgary by air in March from overnight stays in America, only a slight decrease from last year. And Arizona, which welcomed more than 800,000 Canadians in 2023, hopes travelers return to its communities.
You know, a lot of them have mining history and mining culture, or they've evolved into being, art havens or great places for hiking or bird watching. And Canadians love doing that. Arizona is here. We are welcoming to our Canadian visitors.
Montana could use some of that love as well, feeling the effects of a U.S. boycott.
Some businesses are saying they're not seeing much of a change, while we are seeing others say, yeah, we're down 20, 30, 40%. And I just heard of a business the other day that said that they've lost all their Canadian visitors this year.
Land border crossings from February and March are down nearly 9,000 year over year. Darren, how do you weigh that difference between willingness to fly into the U.S. and maybe not so much in driving across the border?
Well, I've had this conversation with my brother recently. He went down with his son and they traveled to the U.S. for a band trip, and they had no problems with any customs or border service agencies. But with that said, you almost read daily horror stories about people trying to cross the land crossings, and it's made us reconsider some travel. I know that I've talked before about a travel by air to Boston that we've kind of sidelined for right now, but we're also leery about a potential road trip to Washington and Idaho for our sons to take part in football camps. And it's mainly because we don't want to be ruthlessly detained for doing something that we've done dozens of times over the years. And ultimately, I think that's the issue for a lot of Canadians. You know, it's easy to fly and hit a destination, then fly back. But if you're traveling on a land crossing, I mean, in a lot of ways, there can be a lot more scrutiny from some of the border officials there. And I think that's maybe what Calgarians are trying to avoid, or Albertans are trying to avoid.
Bob, some of the airlines said to be adding capacity out of Calgary into the U.S. What's your read on why Calgarians might not be as concerned about the political tensions and may be willing to head south?
Well, just myself, I personally know about 10 people that own properties in Arizona and Montana. So imagine how many more do. So they need to get down there and make sure their investment is safe. I imagine they're probably trying to figure out if they can unload it maybe. But, you know, it is snowbird season, so they're all coming back to roost and get ready for all the Calgary things right now. But they'll keep flying down there. I'm not going there anytime soon.
Yeah, no, you've told us that before. All right. Okay. Well, one more topic for us, and that is efforts to save Tyra from extinction. Tyra being the 25-meter tall T-Rex that has been a staple of Drumheller's skyline for a quarter century.
This place is actually pretty close to our heart. Like our little guy is super excited about dinosaurs.
We're over from Ireland for 2 weeks. It's breathtaking. It is bigger than you could actually even imagine.
It is big. Made of fiberglass and steel, Tyra stands 4 times the height of a real T-Rex and draws upwards of 150,000 visitors annually. But last month, the Chamber of Commerce announced it will dismantle the structure when its lease ends in 4 years' time.
Everybody stops here, they do their thing, they park their car, they go get some ice cream, they walk up the street and hang out with the dinosaurs that are all over the place. If that all of a sudden just drove right off to the Tyrrell Museum, I think the impact would be extraordinary.
AJ Fry launched a petition to save Tyra, which already has well over 20,000 signatures, prompting the Chamber, Town and Travel Drumheller to find a way to save the iconic structure.
Even if you're not here for the dinosaur museum, you still come here to see the giant dinosaur.
Now, the working group is to identify strategic next steps. Bob, what do you see coming of all the pressure building on the community to keep Tyra standing tall?
Well, I think they definitely need to figure out what they are as a destination, because this draws a lot of people in. Just people taking photos, and you know, it's a great teachable moment if you're taking your kids out there. You can always go to the museum, but it's, you know, that is very technical and very nice to see as well. But this brings a lot of people into the town, and they'll spend money there. Because imagine if Vegreville got rid of the giant egg, you know, their tourism destination would grow.
Darren, how big of a loss would it be for Drumheller were Tyra, the Tyrannosaurus, to actually disappear from the skyline?
Well, Bob, I'm one of those technical people because, you know, I can only remember like vague visions of the dinosaur and more about the museum. But, you know, while I think it would be a loss, and you know, so far there's a commitment to making this happen, you know, maybe evaluating the future of the dinosaur. But people are really quick to jump on stuff like this for nostalgic purposes. But when it comes to actually funding the restoration or the moving or whatever it might be, it could be a totally different story. I think it's not as though Drumheller loses its dino identity if the big T-Rex statue leaves. And like I said, people are nostalgic to the point until they have to pay for it. And when you start to see that significant sum of money it's going to take to continue to keep this dinosaur, I think the nostalgia fades really fast.
All right. On that note, we've left ourselves with enough time, maybe about 30 seconds each for winners and losers. Bob, how about you start us off? What's topping your lists this week?
Well, the winners are all my nerd friends that are down at the Comic Expo this weekend, starting with the parade today. And you can only call someone a nerd if you are one yourself. But, you know, that it brings a lot of joy into the city. It kind of brings us out of the winter. And it's the second largest attended event outside of the Stampede. And then the losers all just keep going because it's Trump and those guys. Yeah, that's enough.
That's enough. Okay. Darren, you get last word.
All right, you know what? I got to go with Bob. The Calgary Comic and Entertainment Expo. I said to journalists down there, and he said it's just massive. Years past have been big, but it's just massive. Wall-to-wall people. They've really outdone themselves. We got Michael J. Fox and all sorts of other stars there this year. So happy cosplaying to all of you who are there, and out-of-towners, welcome to Calgary. Losers, sorry guys, but what the heck is going on with the Edmonton Oilers right now? I know you're all probably, like my father-in-law, thinking, well, Darren, where are the Calgary Flames in the playoffs? I get it. But still, Edmonton's got to step up.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens tonight. All right, we'll have to leave it there. Good to see you both. Have an awesome weekend.
You too.
Thanks,
Thank
Michael,
you.
you too.